let us zoop over and you are here. Good. Good, 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 good. Because I'm about to show you something that you will appreciate. The first book I want to talk about, we're gonna zoop over, and as you see, this is from bookshop.org. I've been trying really hard to buy. I understand Barnes and Noble is there. It's the biggest game in town, and aside from Amazon, it's probably the most. Like, if you can't get Amazon, there's Barnes and Noble, but I'm also trying to really this year support bookshop.org a lot, and encourage people to use that because you can link your local independent bookstore to your online book purchases. Sometimes it's a little bit more, but you see the actual percentage of what you purchased and how much it goes to the local bookstore. So I'm encouraging people, and I recognize that it is, I recognize that sometimes this is a little bit more money, and so you might need to just get a book from the library or go to Barnes and Noble. I understand that. But this is Nytho. Pope, I'm going to tell you right now, this book is for you. I will tell everyone else why in a minute, but Pope, this book is for you. So Nytho is I'm going to read you the description that they have here on this. So everything that ever happens is skewed by the lens of someone's perception. Keza never planned to fall for a rogue artificial general intelligence, especially one she helped keep imprisoned. But Nytho, the AGI, was fascinating. When Nytho showed Keza how he could help humanity reach a new level of consciousness, her captivation turned to veneration. She was resolved to break Nytho out of his digital prison. Too bad Gel, which is, by the way, is short for Miguel, Gel, her on and off boyfriend, caught her in the act. Now Keza's wasting away in a cell with only a rigged trial to look forward to, except she has a hunch that Nytho has a backup plan. Or 2. Or 10. There's going to be a jailbreak for both of them. Then the world will see what Keza does in Nytho. They've got so much to learn, and she's just itching for their enlightenment to kick in. Meanwhile, Gel finds himself obsessing over his ex, his role in Keza's imprisonment, and her descent into madness. He's convinced Nytho infected her with a virus, and the AGI has more sinister plans. Gel knows that Keza is the key, that if he can free her from Nytho's grip, she can help them avoid whatever hell is barreling their way. He's just got to figure out how he can reach her. Nytho is a cyberpunk with hints of Lovecraftian cosmic horror and is told through multiple voices. Okay? I want you to remember this. This, by the way, is the beautiful cover art. No, Hawkeye, this is not another good girl falls for bad boy AI. This is, Keza is, how to describe Keza? Keza is a general hacker who gets kind of, rather than, she gets too close to being caught by the GovCorps for hacking, and so she kind of like tries to play it cool, so she goes and she takes a job with the AIC, which is this big GovCorp, which is basically designed to keep artificial it's a great I understand the attempt at humor, but in this case it's like the humor is here and it's way over here, right? Like the plot is over here, so the humor doesn't work, and I want to explain why. She is another bad girl who takes the corporate job thinking that she can just kind of get away and just like hide here, and she's literally, there's an entire platoon army of hackers that are hired to continually keep this firewall in place, to keep this fully sentient and sapient AI contained. Like that's their whole job. And she starts talking to it and becomes obsessed with it and plans to break it out, but gets caught by her ex-boyfriend, who is also another one of the hackers that is in part of this. This whole book. So there is there's a lot of this is Pope. This is why I think you would like this. There's a lot of heresy involved in this. So Hawkeye, I get the poor attempt at humor. Netwatch is upset. Like, look, if you've ever played Cyberpunk Red and you wanted to play, and you've played Cyberpunk 2020, which is the previous edition of Cyberpunk TTRPG, and you should go look those up on for our dear friends at Artel Saurian Games. Hi, love them. Also, by the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm an Artel Saurian major fan, and I love all of the people over there. Picture in 2020 if a rabid gained is contained in a, instead of being like shoved into a corner and firewalled off, they are in a box that is perpetually testing the firewall, and you need perpetual army of hackers to keep that firewall intact. And one of those hackers is now enamored and or in love with the rabid. That's where we're at. This book is, and then you have a sprinkling of Nytho has just seen into the, Nytho can show you truth, capital T, truth, and it has a physical effect on people. And maybe it's a virus, or maybe it is literally like you stared into the abyss too long and the abyss stares back. But the book is well written. It's interesting because the sprinklings of the world building that we get are... No, this is a cyberpunk plot. This is cyberpunk, not Mechton. This is cyberpunk with Lovecraft. This is... I'm not going to spoil anything by saying that Nytho is there are lots of comparisons that could be made to a great old one. Time. But picture, instead of the velociraptors testing the digital, like Time says, the AI are as velociraptors testing the digital fence. Yeah, this will end well. Yeah, but picture instead Nytho as the Tarask testing the digital fence. And finding a sympathetic individual who's willing to help them and talk to them. Yeah. The interesting... It's Pope says, yeah, I'm reminded of the 40K term, abominable intelligence. Yes. Yes. And the interesting thing is, this book... because I still have the digital copy, right? Like, so this book is from multiple POV. There is one chapter. It is the last chapter of the book from Nytho's perspective. But there are, all of the other chapters of the book are from... You start with Geza's perspective, and then you have Gel, like Miguel, her ex-boyfriend who reported her to the government corp perspective. You have Edgar, who is my personal favorite character, who is the shrink, who is brought in to evaluate Keza, but also he is brought in because he also treats AI. Right, like that's his profession is as a psychiatrist to AI. Then you have a couple other perspectives for other characters who I'm not going to spoil, but the entire book is all of their perspectives, and then the final chapter is from Nytho's perspective, and you're like, you see this growing understanding of the whole, like, all of these different characters having these different first-person experiences with this shifting worldview, and then at the end, you meet Nytho. And it's very interesting because the world building is also very interesting, in my opinion. Um, it is a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk setting with GovCorps, and there's no real government. There's just corporate, towns now, and all those kind of things. And the main plot takes place in Armonk, New York. And like every time we go somewhere in this world and we're describing things, I'm just like, y'all, you put the headquarters of the major, like government corporation that runs this entire thing and is, the only thing keeping this giant abominable intelligence contained in Armonk. Right? Like it's just an So, in my opinion, it is a very well written book. It is a very enjoyable story. I personally felt we had too many perspectives, right? Like, I felt you could have lived with just three, but there's actually five different perspectives besides Nytho, right? So there's technically six perspectives, and they get chapter perspectives. I felt you could have gotten away with just Keza, Edgar, and Gel, but there are two other perspectives that are they're interesting, but I don't think it necessarily needed, because anything Lovecraftian has to happen in the Northeast. I mean, fair, but Armonk is like, it's Armonk. I don't know how to describe it. It's Armonk. If you lived in like Westchester or Fairfield County, it would be like, if somebody said Armonk, you'd be like, what? So I enjoyed it. I think a lot of people really enjoy it. I personally think it could have been a little bit tightened up. That I don't think we need quite the two of the perspectives that we meet, well, interesting plot wise, don't really do anything perspective wise, right? Like sometimes having those characters give a perspective means that we're getting repeated, not quite repeated, but almost repeated information from a previous character's perspective. And it's you see how these characters are building the tension in between each other, and all of it's kind of building to one, but I personally didn't think we needed all of them. Other people may differ. I would say that this is definitely a book that if you like cyberpunk, if you like Lovecraft, if you like Warhammer 40k, pick this up, give it a read. It is a very interesting take on things. And I will also say that I personally didn't feel that there are a couple sex scenes in this book that I didn't feel, sorry, didn't mean to hit that button. Didn't feel like I understood what what the author was trying to do with them plot wise, but I think it didn't need to be there to do the same thing in the plot, if that makes sense. Like, I understood that none of the sex scenes are there for erotic reasons. It's not more gratuitous than needed, although there is a possibility of a little bit of that. Like, none of these are, the few sex scenes that are in this book are not about romance or even sexual attraction. They're there for other plot reasons that the presence of the characters engaging in sexual intercourse kind of makes sense, but the description of them is tied to more like quasi supposed to be described in a romance novel way, but these aren't romance novel sex scenes. But think of the film rights. look, if this gets made, it needs to be David Villeneuve, and it needs to be the same production crew that he did Blade Runner 2049 with. Done. That's what this needs to be. But I almost think, because it's one of those, like, this, you could do that same expression of engagement in sex without also trying to describe it in a romantic way, because these are not romantic sex scenes, right? Like, these are not they serve other plot functions, and they serve a plot function, right? Like, they're not gratuitous in the sense that they are just stuck there because somebody needed, like, in a needed to believe that they needed to be there, but rather the sense that if you understand why these two characters are engaging in sexual intercourse, you would say that you could do that same moment by expressing that those characters are engaging in sexual intercourse without having the long description that's phrased with romance language terminology, right? Like, I think that's where the problem is. If this was because these sex scenes are not romantic. They're mostly, the first one is literally the definition of clinical getting the rocks off, right? Like, that's what it is. And but the phrasing and the words chosen in the text are very iconic phrasing and words used in a large number of romance novels. Yeah, non-romance dressed as romance. And it felt to me off, right? Like, you read through the book, you know exactly why this scene... Okay. Everybody, the spoiler warning tag is up. If you do not want spoilers for what I'm trying to explain, skip it. I'll step away. I'll take the spoiler tag off. It's above me on the overlay. I'll take that off when we stop spoilers. Okay? In 3, 2, 1. Spoiler alert. So the first sex scene is actually a scene between Keza and Edgar. Edgar, who is the shrink who's brought in to evaluate her. And she forces this scene because she wants him to prove that they're not being monitored, either audio or visually, while in the quote-unquote prison that she's being held in, right? Like, she knows that she's being monitored by the GovCorp trying to get her. So the scene exists for a noir moment. And it's an entirely her power dynamic forcing him to prove that they're not being monitored in a way that would be very obviously, someone would very obviously interject themselves into this kind of moment. But the phrasing is all romance novel phrasing, and you're like, this does not compute. Like, this is not a romantic moment for either party involved. This is from Edgar's perspective, and he is entirely talking about why he's doing this as a show of trust to get his patient to trust him and believe him when he says that they are not being monitored, right? Like, that's what this is. And it's dialogue and descriptions are not matching. Oh, time, I would totally read that. But yes, send me that. Or just link me where I can find it, because I can find it. But I think this is just a case of, I'm going to take the spoiler tag off now. For those of you who stepped away, we're on now back. Spoilers gone. No more spoilers. But I think this is a case of the author writing something and current marketing and market tactics being like, hey, you're engaging with romance in this novel. You should phrase it in romantic language. And I'm like, No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. You should keep this gritty and dark because this is not a romance novel. This is gritty and dark and twisted. And if it had kept like that, I think that would be 10 times better. But do recommend. I don't recommend this for everybody because I recognize that there's a lot in this novel that isn't for everyone. But again, if you like Cyberpunk Red, if you like Lovecraft, if you like film noir, if you like Warhammer 40K, you would probably enjoy this. And it's a pretty quick pretty quick read. It's under 300 pages, and it's romancing the Skynet. Coldrake, you're not wrong. that that God, yeah, that actually works. But I'm gonna drop the link to pre-order in from bookshops.org, or you can try and find it anywhere else. Sherry Singerling is the author. It comes out in 3 days, January 7th. So if this is a book that you might be interested in, go check it out. Maybe ask your local library if they have a copy, if they're going to get a copy. But I think some people will really, really enjoy this, and I want more people to read it so I can talk with them about it, because I have opinions, and my number one opinion is we need more Edgar. That's it. All right. So, yeah, I think there's supposed to be an audiobook. It could be very pretty, pretty. I don't know anything about it. I mean, for me, I don't gravitate towards audiobooks because of just it's difficult for me to listen and process. I have an auditory processing issue, so that would be a thing. Coldrake, it's not shipping the AI boys. It is full on much darker than that. But I think you would enjoy it.